Welcome back to the Silverback Show and part 2 of the BIOPHYLIA Consilience conversation in honor of E.O. Wilson, one of my heroes, one of the Silverbacks that I bow down to, whose great monumental life work has certainly inspired me. Before I go on into other segments of this conversation, one of the primary questions that Wilson answers poignantly for me, and for me, we have to take politics out of this. We have to take politics and push it aside. We have to take big topic items like climate change and push it aside. I can't go there, but I can go into smaller areas of ecosystem stability and wholeness that I believe is a better way to get to the solution to these conversations. So I talked about this a little bit before, and Wilson has, in his book Concilience, he really maps out what's going on in terms of the data out there. And his book Concilience, by the way, was somewhere around 1996, 1998. We were at 6 billion people at the time, and he said in 20 years we'd be at 8 billion. The graph that he's paying attention to is right on the money. But if we just look at water, okay, and I've gone over this again, but it's really, really critical because it's what brought me to look for land with water, because of my awareness that water reserves and water tables under the earth are limited because we use them. And as we continue to expand and continue to use up the water tables, we do not have very good answers today in terms of how we're going to replace the natural water tables that have evolved over a billion years. I don't know if there's anywhere to go with that. That's pretty simple. Water is life. Without water, humans don't live. The sun is life. Without the sun, humans don't live. Interfere with the ecosystem that sustains us, and you have to then go to what Wilson describes as relying on the exemptionist model. And the exemptionist model, as I've described before, suggests that human beings are exempt from nature. Very funny. So all you have to do is look at the civil wars in the most impoverished places on the planet, or look at the preponderance of civil wars in the last 100 years, and you'll see that the preponderance of them are in areas where poverty is high and food and water become an issue. So that's increasing in all these areas that we in the middle class West are outside of. But that's swarming in on us, and we need to not ignore it. We need to understand that carrying capacity is a real serious situation, And if we say that God is going to save us from this, or if we believe that human beings through God's brilliance is going to help us create new technologies, well, you can point to Revelations 2 in almost any kind of serious religious ideology. There's an apocalyptic part of that ideology, which basically says, you know, if you fuck up the chance that you've been given, this is the result. So I personally don't care if you get to this conclusion through your religious beliefs or through the BIOPHYLIA Consilience silverback hypothesis, which is that we're part of creation and we need to protect and provide for creation. So if the silverback is the protector and provider of his harem, if the silverback is the model for us to be the provider and protector for our wives and children and our extended family, the silverback principle also is about community protection. So I told you that when, you know, that I would go out and pound my chest in the neighborhood and I would stare down the guys that would come to, you know, do crime and break into our properties and harass, you know, the good people in the community. That's how I expanded outward in my community with the silverback principle. And in our prayers and in our meditations, in our consciousness, we become aware that we're interconnected. And through our technologies now, we understand that every human being is interconnected through the internet. So this is radiating outward, and we have to think about how we're going to protect the biosphere. We have to think about how we're going to protect the earth. We have to think about how we're going to protect our brothers and our sisters and our mothers and our fathers and all of those who are brothers and sisters and family through the biophilia principle. And we need to think about protecting the other sentient life forms and the other life forms that have helped make life that much more beautiful and that much more resonating with our evolutionary history, with a connection with just looking up at stars. I'm going in a week. I'm so excited. I'm going up to a place where there's no exterior light, so I can just look up and be part of the creation of the hemisphere above, the cosmos. And I remember bringing my children to the countryside and enjoying watching them fly fishing and kayaking and jumping in pools of water and connecting to stars and seeing, you know, comets pass over. We've created summer camps for this very reason, close to nature. So we need to understand that there is no artificial way of recreating ecosystems. Wilson points out a project that was done in Arizona, and I don't want to take time to open up this book to remember the name of it. It'll come back to me. But it was a 2-year project to see if human beings could live in an artificially constructed world. And they did survive for 2 years, but the malfunctions that took place and the data that was gathered from that made it very clear that technology was not a good way to recreate a living system. And whether you believe God created the universe and God created the earth and God created every living being in the earth and God created the night and the day and the sun and the moon and the stars, or whether you believe this incredible, mysterious, magical place called Earth and this living human biosphere coined Gaia or Mother Earth evolved through some genius creative process, really doesn't change anything. The important thing is to understand that however ecosystems have evolved, the intelligence behind these ecosystems and the hit or miss and the experimentation that took place through natural changes and adaptations in genetics that we've studied deeply now for 100 years shows that we're not going to be able to recreate it. No matter what, we're not going to be able to. So our genius is our foolishness, our being mindful that we are the most intelligent creature on the planet means nothing if we don't understand that through being so smart, we're absolutely stupid. And we're absolutely stupid when it comes to caretaking of the planet. And this is not a doomsday scenario. This is wanting my grandchildren and great-grandchildren to breathe good air and not have respiratory problems. This is wanting my grandchildren and great-grandchildren to be able to drink good water and to be able to eat life-sustaining, nutritious sustenance. And I believe that that's what your concerns are too. So I think unless you can come up with another solution, one of the conclusions here is, how do we move forward in a collective, intelligent manner to protect and provide for multiple generations in the future? How do we do that? That's the beginning question here. Okay, so that's kind of concluding part 2. I see that I didn't even touch upon the technologies in terms of creating human life from machines. So we're going to have to touch upon that in part 3 because I have a commitment to my producer and to my people so far to limit these conversations to 15 minutes. So namaste. Tune in to part 3. Thanks for joining us.